Good evening again, members, and I'd like to welcome all members, officers and any members of the public who may be here in person or attending remotely. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Councillor Mike Henderson, who was elected as Councillor for Priory Ward at last week's by-election. But many of us in this room will already know Councillor Henderson from his previous term on the council. Unfortunately, this evening, the Mayor is unwell. When we spoke to him this morning at the Chairman's briefing, he informed us that he tested positive on a lateral flow test for COVID, and he did attend the PCR testing centre at Swale House at 10:30 this morning for his PCR test. So he's just waiting for the result of that to come back through. The Madam Mayoress is unaffected at this present time. I'm sure we'd all like to send our best wishes to the Mayor for hopefully a positive and negative. Excuse me, it's my first time. A negative PCR test and a speedy recovery. Thank you. Again, please be advised the meeting will be live streamed and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. A recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. The following staff are in attendance: the Chief Executive, Monitoring Officer, Section 151 Officer, the Contentious Team Leader and Democratic Service Officers. So on to agenda item 1, the emergency evacuation procedure. There's no scheduled test of the firm alarm tonight, and if the alarm does sound, please leave the building as quickly as possible using the doors signed as fire escapes and assembling the car park at the front of the building and await instructions. If there is anyone in attendance that might require assistance evacuating the building, could you please make yourself known? Thank you. I'd like to ask the Chief Executive to give any apologies, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We've received apologies from Councillors Roger Clark, Anne Hampshire, Nicholas Hampshire, Hannah Perkin, Paul Stephen and Sarah Stephen. Sorry, yes, and Councillor McCall.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to agenda item 3, to approve the minutes of the council meeting held on the 21st of June 2021, minutes numbers 109 to 117 as a correct record. All agreed? Thank you, members. Moving on then to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare? Thank you very much. Item 5 then, Mayor's announcements. I only have one. Obviously, I've talked about the Mayor's illness, so I won't go into that again. I did attend a function yesterday evening in Faversham for Dyslexic Awareness Week, where I met with Councillor Martin and the Mayor of Faversham. It was disappointing, the attendance, but it was well worth going because I found out quite a few things about dyslexia that I wouldn't have otherwise known. So I wish them well for the rest of the exhibition. Okay, agenda item 6, a leader's statement. I will ask the leader to read his statement and then I will ask the leader of the opposition to respond in the usual way. Following that, I will invite other members to respond to the leader's statement. Members invited to speak will have 3 minutes. The item has an overall time limit of 30 minutes to ensure broad fairness. I will try to invite responses from members of the administration and opposition groups in roughly equal numbers. This may mean that I deviate from the order in which members have indicated to speak. Please can I remind all members that responses must respond to the issues raised in the leader's statement. Councillor Truelove.
Though the cause of our vacating Swale House is most unwelcome, I'm pleased we are meeting at the Sheerness East Working Men's Club, and I will concentrate exclusively on the Isle of Sheppey this evening. In the 1970s, I played football for this club. I lived on the island because I was teaching at the then Sheppey Upper Comprehensive School. One of my responsibilities was to monitor the progress of students in subjects like history and geography. And two of the young people on my lists were Angela Harrison and Michael Whiting. When I got elected to the council in the late 1980s, they were there. And what the three of us and many others have heard ever since is the importance of investing in the island. The problem is that that investment has never been entirely forthcoming. There was a grand project in the 1990s called Lion Hope. That collapsed, though one of its targets, the second crossing of the Swale, was achieved a decade later. Now, the coalition is determined to increase the resources that come to Sheppey. Not just the core services, but extra items from capital spends, special projects, and through the direction of government funding. I think the community on the island deserves to know what has been done, what is being done, and what is planned. So far, funding went into the Sheppey Hall and to the War Memorial in Sheerness. Improvements have been made for disabled people's parking with additional bays at Sheppey Leisure Centre and the Little Oysters. There is a new off-street parking for the Kingsborough Manor woodland. There's been refurbishment of playgrounds in Queenborough, Sheerness and Eastchurch, and this programme will continue. There's a new modern toilet at the Minster Leas and refurbishment of the toilet at the Spinney Laysdown. Special projects funds have been used to supported CCTV at Laysdown and refurbishment of kitchens there. It has also supported the Sheppey Community Bus Service, and government welcome back funding went into the successful Hopper service. The Bartons Point crossing bridge has been replaced, and there's also been car parking improvements there. There have been many ways in which the council has and is supporting community groups, especially for children and young people, such as the Early Childhood Development Scheme, summer holiday activities, and food bank services. Meanwhile, many significant projects are in progress. Self-evidently, the repair of the clock tower, the regeneration of the Master's House, the continuing makeover of Sheerness Town Centre, recovery of the pond at the Glen at Minster, and new drainage, toilet and shower blocks at Bartons Point Coastal Park. And what is planned for the near future? We'll be working with Sheerness Port and Historic England to develop the Sheerness Port and Dockyard Initiative. Doing Miletown and Marinetown conservation areas. We'll be working with the Ministry of Justice to secure the conservation of World War II aircraft carriers at Stamford Hill. Important too is Swale's approach to external funding and support. Last week, we were visited by the High Street Task Force. Now, initial thinking was that Sittingbourne would be the priority for working around High Street improvements, but it was the view of the Cabinet that Sheerness would come first. Likewise, we have made Sheppey the priority for any scheme that we submit to government for levelling up, a priority we will pursue whether we receive government support or not. Levelling up doesn't mean sheerness. It doesn't mean anything. These are prime decisions made by Cabinet. But there are two other fundamental issues over which we have no direct control, but where we should speak for Sheppey. One is the current shortage of GP coverage and the health inequalities on the island. The other is the future of secondary education on the island. Now, can I say, when I taught at the Sheppey School, I and a colleague taught two separate classes for what was then O-level history. Over 90% of the students passed with A to C, with a large number getting grade A's. I don't say that as a self-preening, just to show you what the real potential is on the island of Sheppey. And yet, a recent BBC South East TV interviewer talked to young people on the island as if they could not achieve anything if they stayed here. But they can, and we must provide greater opportunities to do so. A chap at the back called Matt Wheatcroft, he and I used to go to Canterbury regularly, developing our skills, perhaps forlornly as teachers, and there it was remarked by other people how loyal we were to the Isle of Sheppey, when most of Kent looked down on the Isle of Sheppey. So we are working with our local MP and with KCC to achieve a better option for Sheppey. But here I have to say very clearly, no one involved has ever said that KCC plans to build a new school, and certainly not immediately. And I welcome the fact that KM have now put that full story right. The academy on the island is not a KCC school, it's a government school. And that is why the MP is vital to achieving a better option, which cannot be done without the involvement of the current provider, Oasis. I think this is all about pride. One of the things that comes out of the pandemic is a need for people to have more local pride than they perhaps have had in their own community.
And you wind up, Councillor Sherlock, please.
I'll wind up, okay. So it's about pride. All I ask is what is being done is something that the people on the island deserve to know, and I hope the media, whether it's the press or social media, reflects that fact. We are for the Isle of Sheppey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd now like to invite Councillor Horton to give his response.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Greetings, everybody. Oh, all right, okay. I'd just like to start by welcoming Councillor Henderson back to the chamber. I appreciate that slight deviation from the leader's speech, but you have been missed, Councillor Henderson, and in tribute to the contribution that you've made, I've just got a couple of points. I too have been involved in education on the island. I'm not an islander, I'm from the Medway Towns, and many of you have the right to hold that against me, I guess. But I have been involved in education on the island. I was a chair of governors at one of the schools on the island for a while, and I can testify to the quality, the commitment and the energy of the children who were at that school. They were absolutely outstanding. I went into the school and was presented with only one member of staff who had been there in the summer term, returned for the autumn term, and our job was to turn this around. But the children, their vibrant approach to their education was absolutely for people who were serving them, trying their very, very best to give them a top quality education. And I think it is vitally important that we recognise that daily moving hordes of people off the island and bringing hordes back onto the island to achieve a quality education is not the right way forward, and I applaud the work that's being done there. The leader gave us an impressive list of the things that this administration have done on the island, and I wouldn't want to take away from that. But he did say that the public of the island need to be told what is happening and what is coming. Advocate is that we should talk to the people on the island about what they want. This administration was criticised by the Ombudsman for not doing so over Minster toilets, and I think that was a bad and dark moment for all of us. To not involve the community in something that we should have involved the community in was not a good place to be. I'm going to leave the issues of GP coverage and the general provision of education on the island to the island ward members, because they know the situation far better than I do. But we are and remain committed to supporting this administration when we think you are doing the right thing and pointing out where we think you are going wrong. I have done that this evening, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. I'd now like to invite members to give their response to the leader's speech. Members, anyone? Councillor Whiting, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Deputy Mayor. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to thank the leader for the name check, and I welcome that. I, like Councillor Horton, I think there's much to be admired in the work that is going on to support the Isle of Sheppey. I mean, I went to the school next door as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, and I lived along the road here, just 300 or 400 yards away, for my entire school life. Must be said actually now, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that the halfway school, Danley School and the Sheppey School, where the leader was a teacher, have now all closed. I don't take any responsibility for that. I don't think you can blame a young child for the fact that the three schools have closed. But no, you can't. But I think the upside of that is there has been a massive investment in education on Sheppey over the years, as those older facilities have been replaced by new fit-for-purpose facilities. My ask is that the education that the young people of Sheppey